The Absolute DC universe is set to expand in March with three new titles: Absolute Flash, Absolute Green Lantern, and Absolute Martian Manhunter. But what is this all leading to? An Absolute Justice League? Hey Internet, I'm Chris. And this is the place on the internet where I talk about comics, movies, games, and things I'm generally passionate about. March is going to be a huge month for DC Comics. You have three new Absolute titles launching, and all of them I'm excited for. Absolute Flash by Jeff Lemire, Nick Robles. You have Absolute Green Lantern by Al Ewing. I forget the artist on that one. And then you also have Absolute Martian Manhunter with Dennis Camp by Dennis Camp and Javier Rodriguez. All three of these titles are radical departures from the traditional versions that we know from the mainline DC continuity, which is exciting. The thing I'm most excited about is the fact that you have two titles like Absolute Flash and Absolute Green Lantern, which historically those books have featured characters that have had the mantle, and now you're going to have these new titles like Absolute Flash, where Wally West is the only Flash and there's no Flash family, and Green Lantern, where there's no Green Lantern Corps and no rings. But Hal, John, and maybe some other characters like Guy and Alan Scott will be appearing in that title. So a lot of exciting things happening in the Absolute DC universe. And not to mention the fact that Absolute Batman is amazing, Absolute Wonder Woman is amazing, and also Absolute Superman is amazing. So a lot of good things going in, and I love what they've been doing with All In. All these books have been able to stand on their own while sort of sprinkling some tie-ins. They just launched Aquaman with John Timms and Jeremy Adams, and that's 2 issues in, and that's been great and has some little sprinkles in there. The Question All Along by Alex Segura has been good. So there's so many good things happening at DC. But I think something that's been on all of our minds, especially fans and people that have been following the Absolute Universe, is like, when will these books cross over? I think it's natural to make comparisons to the Ultimate line at Marvel. And with the Ultimate line, it launched with Ultimate Invasion, which was a big crossover with the maker sort of creating this new Ultimate Universe, or finding it, depending what you believe in terms of that Ultimate line. And because those books cross over, and a lot of those stories, like, they begin with crossovers, like Ultimate Spider-Man, Peter's given the spider by Tony Stark, and the Ultimates obviously is a team book, so all those things, and then you have Ultimate X-Men, then you have Ultimate Wolverine, so it's a little bit more mature, so it's fair that those things have crossed over, but when it comes to Absolute DC, we haven't really gotten any hints of a crossover. The DC All-In special kind of teased why this universe exists, with Darkseid dying and sort of creating this Darkseid energy across the multiverse, creating this new DC universe, the Absolute DC universe. But we do have a hint as to when these will cross over. So Jeff Lemire has a Substack, and in that he's getting people hyped for Absolute Flash, and in it he gave some FAQs about sort of when we will see these books cross over. So the first hint we'll get of a crossover in the Absolute DC universe will be in the Flash #1. And in the Flash #1, we're going to get a lot of big things, because not only are we getting the introduction of Wally West as the Flash in the Absolute DC universe, but we're also getting Barry Allen, and we're also getting this tease to this crossover. That crossover will be expanded upon in the Free Comic Book Day issue that's supposed to come out. We don't have much to go on in terms of what that book will look like. Like, even the solicitation is just like, oh, Absolute DC Universe, that's exciting. And then the cover that we see is just a green figure punching through glass, and you see Absolute Wonder Woman, Absolute Batman, and Absolute Superman. So there's not much to go on. Hopefully after Absolute Flash #1, we'll get a bigger idea of what this crossover will look like. And Jeff Lemire also shared the fact that Kelly Thompson, Scott Snyder, Dennis Camp, Al Ewing, the whole team at the Absolute DC office is meeting almost on a weekly basis to talk about how these books will cross over. So it's cool to see that they're taking a really measured approach when it comes to crossovers. Like, obviously in our minds, we want these things to be like, hey, them to meet and all that, but I do appreciate the fact that they've been focusing on making sure that these stories stand on their own. And it's worked well. Like, all of these books are great. I'm excited for it. It makes me excited every time I see an Absolute book on the shelf or an Absolute book in solicitation. So I'm excited to see what this will look like. I think we're getting an Absolute Justice League, because if you're going to cross over, like, that's natural, and we have 6 books. Maybe we need one more book to make a 7. And you look at the composition of the Absolute universe right now, it is kind of like the Justice League. You have Wonder Woman, you have Superman, you have Batman, Martian Manhunter, Green Lantern, The Flash. So you just need one more character kind of in there to really flesh it out. Probably maybe Absolute Aquaman. That's what I think they're leading towards. I wouldn't want like a big like absolute event, like I think I'm kind of like worn out on events. Like I'm kind of reading like One World Under Doom because like, hey, like that's Doctor Doom, Fantastic Four's in and all that, but I really don't love events. Even Absolute Power, which I like because it's Dan Mora and Mark Waid, is just like I kind of don't love them. So it would be cool to just get like, hey, this crossover issue, the free comic book day issue, and then possibly an Absolute Justice League book. And it would be cool to have two Justice League books. One that's more of like a traditional team where you have 7 members, like Absolute Justice League, and then you have the mainline book, which is Justice League Unlimited, and you can experiment and do things like in the animated series. And obviously, that book is by Mark Waid and Dan Mora, so that is another highlight that DC has right now. So overall, I'm really excited. I can't wait to see what these books look like in a year and to be able to see what the annual will look like. And everyone looks really invested. Jeff Lemire also shared that The Flash is an ongoing series. So he's currently plotting issues 12 to 24, which for me is great. And I think that is great for comic book fans all over to really have these series that are plotted out for the long run with great creative teams, because I think it's very easy to check out when you see 6 issues. I'm looking at you, Absolute Martian Manhunter. I do love Dennis Camp and I'm excited for that series, but I need DC to up those numbers. So if you are listening to this and you like the Absolute DC universe, please pre-order Absolute Martian Manhunter so we could get that to be an ongoing as well. But what do you guys think? Are you excited for a potential Absolute Justice League? Let me know. Like, comment, subscribe. Peace.